Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about why it is that most of us have so many bad relationships or have had, both currently and in the past, and even with ourselves. And of course, a little bit about what you can do about it. In the end of the day, I'm pretty sure that everyone on this planet would prefer to have good relationships. I don't think there are many of us that enjoy having bad relationships. Maybe narcissists might find some sort of enjoyment out of that, but most people wouldn't. So, when we are dissatisfied with a relationship, whether that be with ourselves or someone else, is always because we or they don't live up to our expectations of that relationship in that role that we are supposed to have in that relationship. And it isn't something that we do consciously. We just have these fixed ideas of how we or others should behave in the different roles that we're playing. So a mom should behave this way, a dad should behave that way, a child should behave that way, a partner should behave in this way, and so on. And that's very much cultural as well. So if you're coming from a totally different culture than me, you're going to have different expectations. And based on that and based on how I behave, you might have an opinion about that relationship, whether that is a good one or a bad one. So for me, this is, crazy, but that is how we work. And I can just talk from my own experience where I've had not an awful, but not a brilliant relationship with myself, and mostly has been in terms of my profession as a personal trainer and a diet advisor. And I've always been interested in health and fitness and diet and so on. And in theory, I think I was really, really good at both of them. But I was somewhat lacking in confidence. And this, funnily enough, from the start when I was new, I probably had more confidence because I really believed that I could do this. But over time, when I couldn't quite reach the results that I wanted, and I promised my clients that they were going to reach those results, that kind of started weighing me down and having a lot of negative self-talk about what I was doing, what was wrong with me. Surely I can't be a brilliant personal trainer or diet advisor if I can't get a handle on myself. Could never reach the fitness goals properly that I had, or it took too long for me to adapt to a new certain type of training, and everyone else, it felt like everyone else was stronger than me, which is basically isn't true, because I'm probably fairly strong, where I was at the time, for my gender. But I always wanted to compare myself with the best, and there was always someone who was stronger or better or whatever. And eventually this just pours off, and you start lacking in confidence to some degree. Before, I was very confident I could help my clients, and that will shine through. When I don't really believe in myself, even, how I'm going to convince my clients that I am the right trainer for them? How am I supposed to convince them that they can do it as well when I couldn't properly do it myself? And this doesn't actually have to matter because I have the knowledge. It's the execution that wasn't quite going as I wanted it to. And doesn't mean that I can't tell them how to do it. Just look at a lot of elite football trainers or whatever, where they're beer bellies. They're really brilliant in theory, but could they do it themselves? Nah, no chance. So it's totally invalid. It wouldn't have to, mean anything, but it did at the time. So, I knew what my problem was. I always had this problem, and it was that I couldn't stop eating sugar. It was as simple as that. My diet was pretty good. I exercised a lot and I was pretty fit. I was really strong, but I always had a little bit of baby fat or extra padding or whatever you want to call it. And that really annoyed me because with the amount of training and the food I was eating, I really shouldn't have that. But, I kind of excused that extra bit of sugar on top with that I'm actually eating so healthy in general and I'm exercising so much that it should not matter. But I think that it mattered quite a lot, especially when you do it pretty much every day. So since I was eating sugar more or less every day, maybe not huge amounts every day, maybe I had a day every here and there when I wasn't eating sugar, but in the end of the day, that is messing with my metabolism a lot. So whenever I had a sugar-free diet day as well, I would probably feel like I had accomplished the impossible, but I knew unconsciously that I'm going to make up for this tomorrow probably, or the day after. So I didn't even have a belief that I could stay off of sugar. And despite the fact that I lived my life this way, I had certain expectations of myself, which made me feel inferior to my colleagues. That's just how it was. So I was carrying a lot of disappointment with myself about my capabilities, and I was doing this for many, many years. I have always told people that I'm pretty good at everything I do, but I'm never the best. And that is what we call a limiting belief, isn't it? Why can't I be the best? Of course I can. If I would have really set my mind to it and found a solution to quitting sugar earlier, I think I could have been the best. There's nothing that would stop me other than me, actually. So something that might relate to more people might be many women. Most women have children, especially if they're my age. And it's very, very common for women my age or older or even younger, if they have children, they like beating themselves up about not being the perfect mom. Yeah, I hope that you can relate if you have children. You probably have that thought more than once. And I understand that you want to be the perfect mom and you want to do what's best for your child, but in the end of the day, how much fun would that be if you were the perfect mom? How much fun are perfect people in general? No one is actually perfect, but if we imagine that, that would be like living with a machine. And we will always find something that we will beat ourselves up about so that we can have a pretty average or crap relationship with ourselves. So we need to change our thinking and our expectations around this. So why would you think those thoughts? How is that serving you or your children? Can you have other thoughts about it? Could you have just the expectation that you are going to do the best you can do today and be happy with that, rather than expecting you to be supermom and do things that you are not capable of doing today? You can still working towards that. You can still recognize mistakes that you've made or things that you would have chosen to do a different way, and that's fine. And then you can work on yourself from there. But beating yourself up about it is never going to generate good results for you. And then how many of you have had a relationship with a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, and left because they did not behave the way that you would have liked them to behave? And you probably didn't even tell them how they should have behaved or asked for it. You just figured that they weren't a good match. I have a feeling that quite a few of you fit into this category. I'm very guilty of this myself. I have done it multiple times. So when it comes to relationship with others, expressing your needs and listening to the needs of your partner or the other part in the relationship, if it's a friend or a relative, is a good thing. And then we can choose whether we want to be that person or not. It's totally up to you. But expecting someone else to fulfill your needs in a relationship and then be disappointed if they choose to not do that is really not a good thing. I can promise you that. It's a breeding ground for resentment and anger, and it's never going to give you what you want, ever. Because when you are resentful and angry, the other person is less likely to respond in a positive way to you or your requests in general. And likewise, if they tell you about their expectations and you try to fulfill them, and that is all your focus is on trying to fulfill the other person's needs constantly, you are going to be living in a relationship which is very restrictive and boring probably, and it's just going to be another chore that you need to take care of so that the other person can be happy. I don't think this is a good way of having a relationship. I think that we can listen to the other person's needs and do the things that we want. Sometimes some of the things are actually things that we don't want to do, and that is not going to generate a good feeling within you. But also think about, we're talking about compromises and such and such. Yes, we can compromise, but it has to be something that you're willing to do and that you're happy to do when you are doing it. So can you think about these things in a positive way rather than, I have to do this? If you can think about it as you're choosing to do this because you know that the other person will appreciate it, then you're more likely to want to do it, and it's going to feel better to do it, and that is going to allow the relationship to be a lot more positive and hopefully grow and become even better from there. So if you can just get rid of all the expectations in all your relationships, you are going to feel so much better. I promise you. When you don't expect a lot of things from people, they're not going to disappoint you. They're just going to be who they are, and you can enjoy them just the way they are, which is brilliant. You can still ask for things. That's fine, both from yourself and from others. It doesn't matter if they comply though. You ask for it, whether they do it or not, you're going to be happy anyway. Because you cannot let your emotions and your emotional state be dependent on whether someone else is doing something or not. That is never going to serve you. So if you want to give your power away totally and let someone else dictate your life, you can do that. But I would choose not to, as far as you can. It's fine to be upset sometimes, everyone is. Maybe Dalai Lama isn't, but most people are going to be upset sometimes. But it's also good to know that you have the ability to bring yourself back to reality and have a reality check and think, actually, maybe he or she didn't really want to do that right now, and that's fine. I'll ask another time, maybe. Or maybe you won't. It doesn't matter. So if they don't fulfill your needs, you can take responsibility and fulfill your own needs for your own emotions. So you need to take that control back and be who you are and take care of those needs so that you feel good within yourself. So if someone isn't taking out the trash even though you ask them to, fine. You can take it out yourself or you can leave it. Either way, find a way to think about that makes you feel good. Because in the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to feel good. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these needs, because you think that these needs that you have are going to make you feel good. So why don't you just feel good in yourself and then ask for the cherry on the top? But it doesn't really matter because you're already feeling good. So any sentence that would start with he, she, I, they should do X, Y, Z, whatever, that is a thought that you really don't want to entertain that anymore. Because every time someone should do something, it's because you have an expectation of them. So just get rid of all of that. And when you can get rid of all of that, you will be able to be present with a person in that relationship, and you will appreciate the relationship for what it is so much more. And it's so much easier to be relaxed and have a good time when you're not constantly thinking about he, she, it, whatever should be doing this and that and that. Rather just enjoy being there with them. It's brilliant. That's what we're made for. We are pack animals. We like to spend time with each other, but we don't actually enjoy it if we're going to just have to think about what they should be doing, because that's no fun. And remember what I told you last week? If you want an awesome relationship, you need to have awesome thoughts. It really is that simple, in theory. Then having those awesome thoughts, yeah, that might be hard sometimes. But it actually goes for this, your awful, evil stepmother as well. So if you're anxious about having to spend Christmas with this awful, evil stepmother, and you can't stand her, she probably can't stand you, you may want to reconsider your thoughts a bit and remember that you actually get to decide what you want to think about this other person. So you might be thinking that she should not expect this and that from me. But by doing that, you are actually expecting her to not have those expectations of you. So if you could just say, okay, she should expect XYZ from me, but I get to choose whether I want to live up to that or not. If she's getting angry, that's on her. Has absolutely nothing to do with you. But just those kind of thoughts, you can obviously elaborate a bit on that, but those kind of thoughts are quite liberating because of a lot of the time, if we feel like someone else has expectations on us, we are almost taking it upon us to fulfill those expectations because we want to be pleasing them, but it doesn't feel good to us. So I just want to ask you to put all that to the side. If you have to spend Christmas with a lot of people that you don't normally get along with very well, just drop all your expectations of them and see them for what they are. Let them behave however they want to behave. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Everything that they say or they do has to do with them, their thoughts about themselves or you or whatever. A lot of the time when people are mean, they are pointing out things that they actually missing in themselves. So if someone is commenting on how much cake you are eating because they think you think that they think you are fat, they might even say that I think you're too fat, you shouldn't have cake. That's a mean thing to say. It's most likely because they are struggling with this behavior themselves, or that they are very militant about it and they wouldn't ever touch such a thing, therefore they have no tolerance for other people doing it. That's fine. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Just shake that off. If that or something similar comes up, it's all good. It's their thoughts, you do whatever you want, but make a choice. If we take the cake example again, and you have decided that you're going to eat cake, eat it and be guilt-free. If you decide to not eat cake, don't eat it. So you get to decide beforehand what you're going to do this Christmas, how much you're going to indulge, or if you're not going to do it at all, or just maybe one day or with one thing, or whatever. It's totally up to you. But don't let any other people make you feel emotions that you don't want to feel. And don't stress about having to meet them. Rather, see this as a challenge. How could you think thoughts that actually make this relationship better? How could you drop all those expectations and not be upset that they had expectations of you? It's all very, very interesting. And if you choose to, you could make this into something fun actually. And just drop your ego and just go for curiosity and try to feel how this feels. How could I do this? Is it even possible to do this? I think it is. But we need to play around with it a little bit. Make it a little bit fun. Life doesn't have to be super serious all the time. So, having said all of that, there are certain things that you might not find acceptable in a relationship, like physical violence, for example, or even emotional abuse or cheating or whatever it could be. And that's absolutely fine. You don't have to think good thoughts about that and accept that and be happy with that. That's up to you. And in that case, you can think about it as a behavior that actually don't have anything to do with you. That is not your fault that this has happened. It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. You just happen to be there. It's something that is totally on them. But what they're doing is not, it's kind of neutral, okay? But you can set boundaries around it. So you can just say, If someone has hit you physically, that's not okay. I'm never going to see you again. That is your boundary and it's your right to do that. So I'm not saying that you should stay in a relationship that might be harmful to you. But if it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, you might choose to think differently about it. But that's totally up to you. So we have to be a little bit careful with that. But I'm not thinking that anyone should stay in a physically abusive relationship, for example. Absolutely not. Get out. It's not worth it. You deserve a better life than that. So anyway, back to the healthier relationships. So when you think about a relationship with someone else or even yourself that you want to improve, ask yourself, what thoughts and expectations do you have on yourself or this other person? That's number one. So what are your expectations of the other part in this relationship? And number two, could you throw these expectations away and just be present in this relationship with this other person or yourself? Is that a possibility? Keep those two in mind. Think about a relationship that doesn't feel great. If you don't have anything, a relationship with someone else that you feel like you would like to improve, think about your relationship with yourself. What are your thoughts and expectations on yourself? You probably have a lot of them. And then could you throw these expectations away and just be present with yourself? Is that a possibility? And when you've done that, let me know. Or if you have already done it in the past, perhaps, just let me know how you have managed to change your relationship just by you changing. So you can leave a comment here. You can send me an email if you want to do it anonymously. And that is pim@pimjohnson.com. You can find my email in the info tab, I think. And yeah, please let me know, because I find it so fascinating how we are in so much control if we want to be, but we often feel like we are not. So take back control this Christmas and make it the best Christmas ever by just having great relationships with everyone in your family and your friends, and enjoy that. Be present. See you next week.